welcome to Fantasy Futbol Corner. I'm your host, Yoshi De La Cruz. I'm very excited because we've got a wonderful show lined up this week that's guaranteed to be more entertaining than any Jason Bateman film. We can't forget to thank our sponsor of the show, Excedrin, which is a great little pill that's meant for fevers or muscle aches or if you want to take with a couple of drinks. Sometimes it's a good cure for depression and or heartbreak, which is something that I'm kind of dealing with a little bit right now. Now, usually when we talk about buys, we're referring to a guy in the club that's willing to go home with either a girl or with another man and is willing to do kind of anything gross with either one of them because he just either doesn't care or he hasn't made up his mind in life yet or whatever. But buys are also important to pay attention to in fantasy football because it means that the team is taking a vacation for a week and thus none of the football players are playing, which is exactly what's going on for the Buffalo Bills, the Philadelphia Eagles, the New York Football Giants, the New England Patriots, the Cincinnati Bengals, and my beloved San Francisco 49ers. So if you've got any of those players on your fantasy lineup, you want to make sure that you get them out and plug some guys in that will be able to service you this weekend. Oh, hey, Tom Brady, what are you doing that you have the entire week off for football? Are you going to spend it relaxing? Or fucking Giselle? Now, two quarterbacks that I expect some decent weeks out of this week are both Charlie Whitehurst of the Seattle Seahawks and Colt McCoy of the Cleveland Browns. Oddly enough, they're both playing each other, but both defenses are pretty poor against the pass, so I expect that either of them could have a very, very decent performance here in Week 7. I give the slight edge to Charlie Whitehurst, just mainly because his last name reminds me of White Castle, and I'm a big fan of the Harold and Kumar series. If you're a little bit thin at wide receiver this week and you need to hit the waiver wire, if Aurelius Ben, Greg Little, Doug Baldwin, or Torrey Smith is out there, they all crack my top 25 wide receivers for Week 7. With Felix Jones being down for 2 to 4 weeks, both DeMarco Murray and Rashad Choice have a great chance and opportunity of carrying the ball quite a few times in Dallas. And as well, Montario Hardesty, who's suffered his own injuries in the past, is now getting a bulk load of carries with Peyton Hillis going down. Now I'm going to say this next part very quietly, just in case one of your roommates or your mom is in your room and they're in your fantasy league and you don't want them to hear this. But Javid Best will not be playing this week due to a concussion, and therefore his backup Maurice Morris has a very, very nice chance at putting up some good numbers. I would definitely recommend picking him up if he's out there on any of your waiver wires. If you need a recommendation for possibly a starting tight end this week, then look no further than the kitchen where something's cooking up. Which is just a metaphor that I was going to say to allude to the fact that you could start Jared Cook from the Tennessee Titans as they host the Houston Texans this week. So cook me up an omelet and some biscuits, Jared, because I just recommended you on my Fantasy Futbol Corner. Please. You know who just can't get it together right now? It's the Miami Dolphins. You know? Kind of feel bad for them. Just a bunch of unathletic pussies. Yeah, it's kind of sad. Our first is from Brendan Burke of Oakland, California. Brendan writes to the show and says, "Dear Yoshi, you're a very funny-looking individual." Thanks, Brendan. We were wondering who you thought was the ugliest football player in the NFL. Well, Brendan, I would say that would have to be Curtis Painter, the replacement quarterback right now for the Indianapolis Colts. Curtis Painter kind of reminds me of Bon Jovi's ugly half-stepbrother and a used gun salesman from somewhere in the Ozark Mountains. The next one that we have here is from Matthew Christensen of Philadelphia. He says, "Dear Yoshi, I drafted Rashad Mendenhall in the first round of my fantasy draft this year, but he's been quite disappointing. I'm thinking about asking Darren Sproles for Mendenhall straight up. Would you recommend this trade?" Well, Matthew, As crazy as it is, I think I would propose that trade. Darren Sproles is leading the NFL in receptions from the running back position. He's a quick, young, fast little mofo, and I think that he's a part of a very, very, very talented offense that is in the red zone often. But even when they're not, he's just an integral part of the receiving game as well. So you would have my approval on that trade. Thank you very much to the two individuals that sent emails to me this week to be read on the show. If you would like any of your questions answered on Fantasy Futbol Corner, if you have any comments or concerns about the show, feel free to email me at yoshithesexymofo@gmail.com. That is yoshithesexymofo@gmail.com. Before I sign off, it's time for my prediction for Fantasy Football Stud of the Week for Week 7. Kansas City Chiefs. Get ready for Darren McFadden to run through you harder than Wilt Chamberlain ran through women in the 1980s. You've got a weak defense, and he is one of the most savage beast running backs in the NFL. You stand no chance against Run DMC this week. Thank you so very much for tuning into Fantasy Futbol Corner Week 7 preview. I'm your host, Yoshi De La Cruz, and I'm here to remind you that life is most significantly enjoyed when you're spending time with a good friend. Or shoplifting from Costco. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace out, pants down, have a great fantasy week.